What's going on, Jarrett Ingram? How are you today?
Yo, what's up, Jake? Thanks for having me on, man. I hope you don't mind my standard issue here with my Diet Dr. Pepper. It
Yeah,
kind of
man,
comes with
rock
me
it.
everywhere.
You got to rock it, dude. You got to rock it. Be you, be real, live your truth, man. Live your truth.
Let's
Um,
go.
really what we're doing here is I think that there's this number, there's these two numbers that people are really obsessed with. Business people are obsessed with the $100,000 number and the $1 million number. Not that many people are obsessed with the $1 billion number because that's a whole different game that we're talking about. Or unless it's not, and that's just my mindset, but still, that is what it is. But we're looking at the $100,000 level and the $1 million level. And what's interesting is I think that people think about like, I made $100,000 and then a million's like the next, it's just the next step. But like, I mean, that's 10 times what you did. That's saying that $10,000, your next step is $100,000. So I mean, it's a huge shift and huge change. But I wanted to bring you on to talk about this, about that scale from 6 to 7 figures, since I know that you've done that in your business and done that in your business past and built that up. So I wanted to talk about that. First question is, what is $1 million, and what are misunderstandings that people have about $1 million in business?
Dude, that's a super good question. Man, a really good question. It just made me think of a bunch of different things. One of my favorite things that is out, it has a lot of different names, but one of the names that it has is, people call it the $1 million matrix. Have you ever seen that? It's like a graph of it's kind of a graph of how you get something or a product to turn into $1 million worth of sales. And it's just kind of this relative matrix that shows, well, you could sell one thing to one person that costs $1 million.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
That thing.
Yes.
You've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And super interesting. And then when you look at the, like, just the statistics of how many businesses are able to cross the $1 million mark, it's relatively few. When you first start a business, the $100,000 mark, that 6-figure mark, I don't know for you or for, whoever might watch this in the future, but as a kid, I always remember hearing, like, if somebody made right 6 figures, that their life was set, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
and what was kind of implied by that was like $100,000. They weren't talking about $999,000. It was
No.
like, if you could get to 6 figures, you'll be fine. And so for me, kind of that initial frame as a kid was almost like this. Maybe it was reachable, but maybe it was just kind of like that's going to be a hard goal, and that's what you should be getting after. And if you could get close to that, you'll still be okay. But if you could hit that number, man, your life would be set. And so sometimes I think we frame out to our kids or to this generation of just kind of how unrealistic dollars are. But when you jump into business, what I found is that if you solve a problem that enough people care about and you can get it in front of their eyes, the road to $100,000 business is actually not that hard. In fact, I think that it's harder to stay at $100,000 than it is to get to $100,000.
Right.
Because if you get to $100,000 in most service or product-based businesses, you can hardly sustain your own lifestyle at $100,000. If you have $100,000 in sales, you're making less than probably 40 or 50,000 a year. And
Well, and also a $100,000 business, that's not a business, that's a job. And it's a job that you're doing everything.
Totally. 100%.
And so you look at that and you go, okay, so $100,000 business, is it sustainable? In fact, we had that conversation talking about where there's that gap where someone's got to make a decision of, are they going to go further into that higher range, whether it's 7 figures or whether it's 900 or whatever it is, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the point is there is this little bit of space where if you start hiring the people to do the work for you, now all of a sudden your income is going down because you're in this space where you really can't hire. If you're making $100,000 in your business, you really can't hire a team of people that are actually adequate. Sure, you can hire people in foreign countries and VAs and stuff like that, but to be able to really build a business that isn't just a golden handcuffs, you need to go to a higher level. And so I think that entrepreneurs have to make the decision. Am I not complacent? I don't want to say that because I don't want to put judgment on it. Am I content with having a high paid job, or do I actually want to create a business? Because you've got to make that decision. But being in the middle, I think, is a lot more painful. Being in the middle is not a good place to be.
For sure. In fact, so, we've had a relationship for a long time, and me and you, and one of the things, I probably have mentioned this before, as I've been in the space of business consulting now and corporate training to help other people, is one of the things that I hear a ton. And I said this myself too, when people would say, how's business? How are things going? Kind of a common phrase is like, I'm right at the point where it's more work than I can really handle. Like, it's driving me crazy, but it's not quite enough work for me to hire somebody else. And it's kind of a lie that we tell ourselves. And every time we say that, we reinforce the lie.
It's interesting.
And so in scaling businesses and in helping other people scale, one of the things that really comes to mind is just the idea of risk, right? The idea of risk level. The best business owners that I have found who have been able to go from 6 to 7 figures, they understand that if they are the owner of the business or a majority partner or whatever, maybe it's a group of partnerships, it doesn't matter. But the owners or owner of said business, said brand, the level of risk has to be owned by them, right? We can't put the risk level on employees. They've decided to eliminate risk and work for you. But if you're going to see all of the upside in having your business scale up, which is what you're going to see if your business scales up, you get all that upside, all the profitability, all the sales go to you. Then the risk level has to be absorbed by you. And so when you're at that point, one of the mistakes that business owners can make is when they say, but it's not quite enough work to hire somebody else. And I challenge that immediately. And I'm like, no, that's the exact time when you have to hire somebody else, because usually it is the owner of the business or the founder of the business or the ownership of the business. They have just the excitement, the vision, just all of it, right? All the juju, all the magic of the business, of the brand, to be able to actually push sales. You can hire somebody to do fulfillment for you. You can hire somebody to do all of the back end things that are taking your time. And what I have found is like the founders of whatever the brand is, they have this magic that works better than even when they bring in a salesperson. Most business owners are able to kind of convey the magic of their brand the best. And so at that point, when they should hire somebody, that's exactly what they should do, is bring somebody else in to do fulfillment. And guess what? They're right in some sense. If they do no scaling at all, their profitability will go down. But the point of hiring somebody isn't to stay the same. The point of hiring somebody is to release that kind of weight or time that's on their shoulders, so then they can do more magic and increase the sales, increase the business itself. And when they do that, then they get into the right pattern of, it's kind of like you love baseball, I love baseball. Remember the phrase, if you build it,
baseball's back. Baseball's back.
By the way. Yes.
Now people will be watching this later, but this is just a couple days after all that mess ended.
Games.
Yes.
And so I really strongly believe that. A lot of people think that it's like, I'll scale internally when I have the sales to support that. And I actually believe that it's the opposite. I believe you'll have a much easier time scaling the sales, scaling the need, when you have already scaled the infrastructure.
Yeah. Real quick, I talked over your baseball analogy. I didn't hear what it was. I just got so excited about baseball.
Like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
So just that simple. So
that's the idea. Is like simple you build idea. That infrastructure. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying about making a decision. Like you got to make a decision to go, or make a decision to stay back. But this middle ground, this no man's land, you're in a place where you're working way too hard and you're not getting enough reward. So you got to make that decision. Do I want to scale? And what you're saying is you don't have to have the sales first. You got to make the scaling moves. So what do you think it is from your standpoint as a consultant? What do you think it is that prevents those entrepreneurs from doing the things necessary to scale from the 6 to the 7 figures?
Yeah, another good question, man. Thanks for asking that. It's I think there's a handful of things, and I've experienced all of these things. The first thing is that most entrepreneurs have experienced some level of a fear, right? Like, one of my other favorite things to say is your best accountability partner when you're a business owner or an entrepreneur is your bank account. Your bank account is going to let you know if you're doing your business well or if you're doing it poorly, if you're actually being productive or if you're just being busy, right? And you can lie about lots of stuff, but you can't lie about the number that's sitting in your checking account. And so with that, kind of helps paint this picture that entrepreneurs experience kind of a level of fear where, because they've created usually this thing from basically nothing, right? We can get as deep as we want in terms of thoughts, but like thoughts are things. So like before a brand, before a product or a service or whatever it is was created, it was a thought. It was literally created from nothing. And even if it's a copycat business, your particular version of it was created from zero. And so I think that sometimes there's an inherent fear that because it came from zero, that it could quickly go back to zero. And entrepreneurs are always working, trying to make this happen. And so fear tends to drive some of the decisions. And when fear drives decisions, sometimes you cut corners because you try to increase profitability right now, today, right? Yeah. So you don't want to bring in employees yet until I have enough business, or maybe you cut corners on whatever level of fulfillment it is. Even for message-driven entrepreneurs, I've watched them cut corners in their offerings, corners in their time, because time is money for them, right? And you're trying to squeeze out profits.
In that world, as a speaker, as a coach, as that kind of thing, I believe that the monetary fear is the biggest thing that holds them back from actually providing the most value that they can. You got all these coaches who say things like, well, it's not about the money. And I go, great. Well, then if it's not about the money, then why are you spending all your time chasing money? Why are you doing that? Why are you spending all your time chasing money? Why are you spending if it's not about the money, then why don't you just make a YouTube channel where you give away all of your best content and know that people will come and it actually will help you with the money? Like, the thing is that the money stress is actually what keeps those coaches and speakers away from getting to where they want to be. It ends up being this self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever we focus on, whatever we fear, we end up bringing into our lives. And I just think that it happens over and over again. And the thing is like, I think no matter what level we're at, we're not immune to that. Like, what matters is trends. You know, I knew someone who had a very large inheritance. They had a very large inheritance, and I had never seen them more stressed about money. They became more stressed about money than they ever had been. And after talking about it, the realization that they came to was that money was now dwindling. And I think whenever you have a resource that is shrinking, we're either growing or we're dying. In nature, there's no in between. There's growing or dying, and that's it. And I think it comes to money as well, it doesn't matter what, someone gets a inheritance, someone gets a, and this isn't a situation that people want, but someone has a insurance, a loved one dies and they get that insurance benefit. They get that money. And even though they all of a sudden have more money in their bank account than they've ever had, they immediately go into scarcity because it is a resource that is shrinking rather than
watch shrink. They can watch it shrink on the daily.
It's like water. It's like you think about an old town in back in the days, you think about an old West town with a water tower. That is a resource that is finite. It's a finite resource, and it is scarce until the water is replenished. And that's why I think that business people need to focus on money. I know that sounds silly, but like, because you go, why wouldn't that be the case? But business people are afraid to think about money because they think it makes them selfish. They think it makes them whatever. But I think that you need to focus on the bottom line, or else you can't be in the mindset to actually serve.
I think you're 100% correct. In fact, if you'll let me, can I kind of go off on a tangent of some things that have helped me out?
Please.
So here's kind of our, you just cut me off whenever you want, but let me try to get the whole idea out. Because, I love where you're headed.
Talk as long as you want.
This could help so many people. So my first real experience as an entrepreneur, I'm not talking about, we could talk for a long, fun time about all the little things I did as a kid and my entrepreneur mindset and those kinds of things. And then, through college and all that. But my first real opportunity as an entrepreneur was when I took over a catering and events business in Southern California. I thought that everything, I just thought everything was amazing. So we're talking like, before the market tanks in 2007 and 8. So taking it over like in, 2006-ish. And it was doing a ton of money. Actually, it was doing really great. And I was like early on I was in my young 20s. I was about to get married. And things were just going amazing. In fact, I stopped going to school because I just thought, I'm awesome. I am awesome at business. So in 2007, I met my wife. We decided we're going to get married. We ended up getting married in 2008. And I just thought I was amazing. And turns out I was just really riding a wave of a pretty good economy, which could happen. And then the very best thing that could have happened to me in business, and it was the worst, scariest thing that happened in business, was that I had this service-based business based on people's extra money to throw a party. Okay. And then all of a sudden the economy tanked with the Great Recession. Right. And all of a sudden it felt like nobody had any money. And we had this business that was scaled to do $1 million. And all of a sudden we were at like the 300,000 a year mark. And it felt like we had $0. It was such a scary, awful time in my life.
And can I stop you real quick?
Yeah,
you just said that I went from million to 300,000, and immediately that there's people listening right now going, well, boo-hoo, you only had 300,000. Can you explain what that means in a business like the catering world? Because that is something that people don't understand, that revenue does not equal profit.
No, not at all. In fact, oh my goodness, had we been doing $300,000 a year, we probably would have profited more money when the economy tanked than when we were doing $1 million. And the reason is because our business was scaled to do that. We had a fleet of vans. We had banquet centers that were ours that we were leasing out, and we had big overhead costs. We had salaried employees that we normally would have tons of work for. And all of the sudden, as kind of the domino effects start happening with the economy dying, we only had probably like a 25 to 30% margin. So you think about, that based on $1 million of sales is like $250,000 to $300,000, right? And then you take that same 25% margin on $300,000 in sales. I mean, that sounds like $75,000, right?
Yeah.
But, if people have learned some things about business, which I imagine lots have, and if you haven't, you're going to learn some really fun lessons. So put your seatbelt on, right? Because those are fun. It's like a roller coaster, and it does go upside down. Okay. That's a question that I used to ask when I was a kid getting in line at roller coasters. Does this one go upside down? Well, the business one goes upside down. Just plan on it. Yeah. You get a lap belt, you get the shoulder things. Just strap them on. Sure. You're definitely going upside down. So, with business, you have costs and you have fixed costs, and our fixed costs matched $1 million of sales. Had we only been doing 300 or 400, 5,000, our fixed costs would have been lower for that. So essentially, when we dropped down to being at like the $300,000 mark, we were making no money. There was like no margin. There was nothing. And it was scary. I was mad at everybody I could be mad at. I was
Mhm.
mad at my partner. I was mad at the government, at the housing market. I was mad at God. I was mad at everybody that I could be upset at, trying to issue all the blame. I thought I was going to be like a 24-year-old having to file bankruptcy, and it, it makes me stutter, right? I'm a speaker and I can't even, it makes me stutter going back to that point because it was such a hard time. And, I'm so grateful for a few things that we had figured out. And I promise this will circle all the way back to your phrase when you said it needs to be about the money.
Yeah.
The first thing that it does need to be about, and what we figured out, was that we needed to create, and everybody does, I strongly believe, needed to create a people first organization, something that would attract people instead of just getting out there and trying to like spearfish your individual clients. And so some of the things that we did that still work today, in fact, they work better today, is getting really clear on your company's mission and your purpose, right? Your purpose is like, what are we wanting to accomplish in the business? And so for us in catering, think about it this way, and then apply this to your business. Is for us in catering, if somebody would have asked before this mess had happened, what business are you in? We would have said, we're in the catering business, the party business, the events business, the food business, right? Whatever it is. But after that, when we got really clear on what's our company's purpose, then to answer that question, the correct answer was that we were in the business of gathering people together to create lasting memories. And that became our whole marketing campaign, all of our communications, the way we talked about our business, the way we talked about clients, even about ourselves and about our own employees. It became really clear that was our company's purpose, right? The thing we were going to accomplish. So the other thing that really changed it is we got clear on our culture, right? Culture is just a common set of values and beliefs within an organization or a group of people. Just like different countries have cultures, different families have cultures, businesses will have cultures. And here's the magic about it, is business has a culture anyways. It's just, you can either let it form and just create itself. This is just kind of how we treat and talk to each other and act with each other, or you can be on purpose. What are the words we use? How do we tackle issues? How do we respond to each other? All of those things. And got really clear on those things and the vision of the company. Where were we headed? What were we trying to accomplish? And as we did those things, we were actually able to attract way more people on both sides of sales, right? So if sales is like middle, you have the fulfillment side, which is your internal people. Okay. So we were able to attract employees when other people couldn't find employees. And then, of course, we were able to attract more clients and customers, because ultimately, even in a recession, people still have money. There's still people with money. It visually looks like there's less of them, right? And so here's the thing. Today, I'm a super renegade about getting really clear on your company's purpose. Now, there's kind of a black eye of that, or maybe a misnomer. The other side of that exact same coin is like, well, I'm not in the business of making money. I'm in the business of creating lasting memories for people, right? Of gathering people together to create lasting memories. So it's not about the money. But here's the thing. It has to be also about the money, because you cannot accomplish your purpose if you have no money. All the good you want to do with your brand and your business and your product and your service, if you have no money, then you cannot accomplish your purpose. I think I've thought about that a ton and had this conversation even with speakers and authors and coaches, because you can have the right answer for somebody. Maybe you've developed a system or a roadmap or something, and it's going to totally change somebody's life. If that system, product, idea, book, whatever it is, that will totally change somebody's life, if that never makes it in front of somebody's eyes, there's no difference between having it and not selling it, and not having it at all. It's the same result, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so you're totally right. You have to, your business has to make money, or there is no greater purpose. There are no values and purpose that's achieved.
Totally. Money is the fuel behind it. Like you talk about culture, like within the company. I I I think that people not getting a paycheck harms company culture, right?
Oh my gosh.
Someone
Yeah,
not
of
getting a
course.
paycheck. And so if you can't make those bills, and so you look at it and you go, all I care about is impact, right? If someone said all I care about it is impact, awesome. If that's really true and that's really the driver, then you want to make as much money as possible so that you can have the biggest impact possible. At least if that's in the game of entrepreneurship. Now, in the game of business. Now, if your game is different, you might be saying, well, I'm looking to, go do this through just a social media platform, or maybe I'm a nonprofit or whatever. But one of the wisest words I've ever heard is a nonprofit organization is just a business with a different tax code. That's it. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a business with a different tax code. And that was someone who ran
retained earnings. Right?
Exactly. And that's someone who ran a very large nonprofit organization was explaining that to me. It's just a business with a different tax code, because he was saying that people always come up to him and talk about, well, I want to start a nonprofit. And the reason why they want to start a nonprofit is because I don't want to deal with all that money stuff. And I don't want to make the waters murky between impact and income, but it's still just a business. Now your clients are called donors. It's a different client.
It's so true.
It's called donors.
And you're still selling them a product, you're still selling them something, right? Even you're selling them fundraising. You're selling them some idea. Sometimes you're selling them information. Sometimes you're selling them to feel good that they donated to whatever good thing you're going to do. But if you don't have the dollars, you can't even do the good thing you want to do as a nonprofit. There is nothing happens if dollars aren't exchanged.
Yeah. And it's just something Grant Cardone talks about. He says, we live in a financial world, whether you like it or not. That's what is. I believe in accepting what is. That's the world that we live in. And that's the scoreboard. And if you don't have, it's the scoreboard and it's also the fuel behind things. And so if you don't have dollars coming into it, well, now is a very poignant example, because fuel costs a lot of dollars right now, current state. So true. So you look at that and you go, that's the fuel of the impact. So if you care about impact more than anything else, if you care about company culture more than anything else, if you care about those things, now those things might generate the money, but the money has to be there.
It has to happen. In fact, I have yet to find a genuine purpose, or, talking about your why is kind of all the rage right now. And there is no why that exists, and no purpose or company purpose or values that exist that aren't faster fulfilled, more potently fulfilled, and just greater, like to the world, to more people, more fulfilled by scaling your business.
Yeah.
There is no way to fulfill your why, even your business why and your business purpose. Like, you can't fulfill it as good if you make no money. You just can't. I've actually challenged that idea back and forth, even the people who are like, I once talked with somebody, she was a part of a multi-level marketing company. Okay. And she was making great money, pretty good money, right? She was in and she hustled and she did it. And this not a conversation about MLM companies, but she genuinely came up to me and said, well, Jarrett, my husband he makes really great money. So I just wanted to have more friends across the country. Because kind of her argument initially, I was brought on to consult with his business, and her argument initially was like, I don't really need to scale my business. Like, I don't need the money. I wanted to make more friends. I wanted to, I just have this blind spot of never having friends as a kid. And now I felt like I could have friends. And I went, awesome. Do you know how you get even more friends? by scaling your business and having way more contacts and way more customers and way more upline, downline, and your whole network increases. And she was like, what? And I'm like, if you don't want the money, donate it. I don't know, do whatever you want with the money. But if you're genuine about telling me all I wanted was more friends, then go scale your business. You'll have tons more friends. And that kind of led me down this path. I was kind of a renegade about stop separating your why and your purpose from making money. It's actually the same, right? The money is the vehicle to help you do that. So I firmly believe, and I am a renegade about getting clear on your purpose, because that's what attracts people. But they need to be melded together, right? It's actually the same. And that's super fascinating.
Yeah. Why do you think so many people are afraid to talk about money? Why is that such an issue?
Man, I don't know. Actually, I don't know why they do that. Money can be scary, right? Like when I think about like bandwidth of internet, right? Because we all kind of know what that is, and humans have like a cognitive load, which might be like your bandwidth. This is like the things that you are capable of focusing on and dealing with. And not every person's cognitive load is equal. But what I do know, and what I have seen in myself, and I've seen in literally hundreds of people, is their cognitive load, their internet bandwidth. When you don't have enough money, the idea of money and the thought of money takes up all of your bandwidth, all of that cognitive load. It's all you can think about. If you have not been able to pay your mortgage or your rent all day long, every single day, you're trying to figure out, how can I pay the rent? You're not trying to figure out, how do I be a good human? How do I serve my neighbor? How do I solve this problem for the world? How do I go create just good in the world? You're not. Totally. You're thinking like, oh my gosh, every day, how do I pay my mortgage? But then something changes, and it's almost like a light switch, or just like this magic switch. As soon as your expenses are taken care of, what I've also found in people is that the simple idea of money, or like focusing on money, takes up a relatively small amount of their bandwidth, right? Totally. And as soon as like the stress of money goes away, it really just takes up a small amount, and then they can use the rest of that bandwidth to actually focus on scaling something amazing and being a good human and doing good in the world and focusing on their purpose and and then of course back to the discussion we just had, that money's tied to that, but then it kind of frees up your mind and your ability to go create and do and create more. And very few people I found, as soon as their expenses or their lifestyle was taken care of by money, few people that I know of. In fact, I'm just saying few because I'm assuming there are some, but I don't personally know a single human who focuses on and obsesses about the idea of money at that point.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And there might be, because different people have a different threshold of what is acceptable. Do you know who Alex Hormozi is?
I do not.
Fascinating guy. Absolutely fascinating. He's got big on YouTube over the last, I don't know, he just popped out of nowhere over the last year. And the reason why he popped out of nowhere is he just had his head down, was building his business, and he sold out of, he did an exit. It was like this, I don't remember the exact number, but it was I believe it was a 9-figure exit, not a 7-figure exit. And he's like our age. I think he's actually younger than us. He's like, I think, we're both 30. On him. I think he's like 32 or 33 or something like that. So good for him. But he's got this thing. He owns a business called acquisition.com now. And I think that he says they do around 85 million a year in business. Fascinating guy. Everyone should listen to this guy. And what's cool is
I'm already subscribed to his YouTube channel.
You said you didn't know who he is.
Yeah. I just maybe didn't realize that
was his name.
But I've watched tons of his videos. I was writing his name down, And then you said his YouTube channel. So I typed his name in. How about that?
So you know how he does that whole thing every time where he says like, I'm this, we have this much money, we have this, and I have nothing to sell you. And it's it's a cool gimmick that he has. And he's talked about that. It's a gimmick is what he's doing. But the point is he was on a podcast the other day. I was listening to him talking about this, and he was talking about weight and he was talking about money. And he said the only difference between someone who is fit all the time and someone who is 100 pounds overweight is that they have a different number of, oh, shoot, I got to do something. They have a different number. Yeah, now he's super fit. He came in the gym in the fitness space. And he said for him, it's 15% body fat. If I get to 15% body, that's not me. I'm talking about him. Yeah, he says, if I get to 15% body fat, I feel like, okay, enough is enough. I need to get back on things and I need to fix things. And because he was talking to someone in this interview who was well over 100 pounds overweight and said the same thing. He said, because the guy was saying, why can't I? It was really interesting. It was the producer of the podcast and they started talking to this person. And what he said was, how come you're not 200 pounds overweight? And he's like, well, because of this and this and this. He's like, no, it's because you have a line and it's just your line is different. And he said the same thing with money because you talked about stress. The thing is people have stress at a different level. So some people will say, well, I don't need to get stressed about money until I have $0 in the bank. Some people say I don't need to be stressed about money until I'm in a deficit, until I have negative, I've overdraft. Some people say I don't need to be stressed about money until I have 9,909 when I'm under 10,000 or I'm under 1,000 or I'm under 100,000. The thing is everyone has a different number. And I think that rings true is that
that's so fascinating. That it reminds me of a conversation, when I was early on, like, college, I liked to keep my savings account. This is the best, right? If I had $2,500 in my savings account, I was like chilling. I was good.
Yeah.
There were no problems. I had tons of money. And just a couple of days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a relatively successful business. And he has a service-based business kind of in the construction space. And he had a few jobs going out or working. And, you're talking, he probably had $200,000 or more in business that's about to be collected over the next 30 days or so. And he calls me because he was like, Jarrett, I'm freaking out. My business checking account is down to $5,000 and I'm like losing my mind. And so he started as a client and now he's just a friend. And so we just talk through that. And I'm like, okay, well, when are you collecting dollars and when are they coming in? And, turns out he's got almost $250,000 coming in just over the next 30 days. And I'm like, well, just relax. And so funny though. Right. And it reminded me of that, of that same me where in college, my savings account had $2,500. I thought I was rich. And as soon as it kind of dipped below, if I had to buy books or pull things out and I'd get to 2,000 or 1,900, I was like stressing. But it is, I think you're totally right. Based on people's lifestyles and whatever threshold they've kind of arbitrarily set, I think it's totally right. And it applies back to where you get below that threshold and you stress about money. It's the thing you obsess about and the thing that you focus on and stress about. And you get past the threshold on the positive side. And all of a sudden, now it frees up all this time, all this cognitive load, all these abilities for you to create and do and get excited about something new.
Yeah. I love that. Let's kind of change gears a little bit. What do you think is the most important thing? Like when you're coming into a business, you're coming in as a consultant and they say, okay, we're in the 6-figure range. Let's say they're in the lower 6-figure range. Let's just say this person's making 200, 250 in their business. And they say, our goal is to scale into the 7-figure range over the next, let's say they say 2 years. What do you think it takes for them to scale from that 6-figure range into that 7-figure range?
So I first ask them some questions. So if they're at 250, they need to do 4 times the amount of everything to get to $1 million, right? Simple math. So I say, okay, business owner, maybe business owner with a manager. Usually if somebody's at the 250 mark, they likely have some kind of a team, even if it's maybe a 1099 team. Maybe if they don't have full-time people, they have somebody. They have somebody they're leaning on.
Yeah.
And so I start asking the questions. Okay, say the business owner, can you do 4 times the amount of work you're doing right now? Can you do 4 times the hours? Can you do 4 times the productivity? Can you do 4 times the sales, 4 times everything right now, today? The answer is almost always no. Can your fulfillment side of things? So this really applies to any business, whether you're a product or service or you're a message, right? If you're a coach or a mentor, on your
Can you take on
fulfillment
4
side,
times the
can
amount of
you take on
clients? Can you?
4 times? And the answer to that is usually no in our current space. Sometimes it's a yes, right? But rarely is it a yes in exactly the situation they're in right then. Then the next question is, can your current clients or current customer base, can they produce 4 times the amount of business that they're already producing? And the answer is generally no, right? Sometimes you get really clear, you optimize your business, maybe you have a separate offering or an upsell, or you optimize some things so you're a little more profitable, and you could squeeze more profits out of your same people, or do another offering and scale that up a little bit more. But as you ask those questions, then your brain hopefully starts to come up with extra solutions, right? So immediately, if I can't do more, but I would like to create more, what do I have to do? I have to leverage somebody else's ability, somebody else's time. And so scaling a business almost always requires a roadmap to bringing more people in. And so part of the initial discussion, the initial idea, even if someone just does it with themselves, right, getting really clear, where am I headed, is the mindset. If they can't get their mind right, all those blocks, all those fears of money, all the fear of, I created this from nothing and it's mine, it's my baby, and I know it the best. Could somebody else do it as good as me? Let me tell you, no, they can't. They won't. They won't do it as good as you. They likely will not. Now, there's some things in business that you want to hire people and they'll do them way better than you. Usually, marketing strategies, bring in a specialist for that. Okay. If there's some fulfillment things, if there's organizational things, if there's paperwork things, if there's spreadsheet things, if there's all the inside busy work, admin things that make you zero money, but they have to be done, there probably is somebody who could do that better than you. But the actual product itself, or the service, or the message, or whatever, the punchline is, so stop asking yourself and being scared of this. No, there might not be someone that can do that better than you. But is there maybe 10 people who could do it at 80% of what you could do? And that sounds a lot like 800% more, right? So maybe 10 people can't do it at 100% each, but can a few people do it at a relatively high percentage? And remember, they're employees. They've made the decision that they want someone else to take the risk in exchange for a paycheck. You've made the decision that you want to take on the risk for all of the upside. And so if that's the decision, then you do need to be willing to let some things go. A business will not scale without more people in it. It just won't. And so that's usually the approach that I would take first, is as you strategically ask questions, kind of start to change the mindset. Then you can get clear on company purpose, values, and vision, and then you hire the right person who's the right fit, right? And then you, as the business owner, go do your magic. The thing that you can do to scale the business. I often say that business owners, if they want, not people who own a hard job, right? But if you want to move from I own a job to I own a business, the idea is only do what only you can do, right? Only do what only you can do. Think about this for coaches, mentors, authors. the, like, when you think about a message driven entrepreneur, then maybe only you can convey the message in a coaching session, in a mentoring session, on a YouTube channel. Maybe only you can write the words down on a page if you're writing a book, and there's some arguments to maybe using a ghostwriting team, right? But either way, maybe only you can do that. But can only you upload the YouTube channel? Can only you run the sales team? Can only you run your calendar? Can only you edit your videos? Can only you do all the other admin things to help fulfill a lot more sales? And the answer to that's no, of course not. Lots of people could do that. In fact, those admin things, those business things on the internal side, there's probably lots of people who on those things can do it much better and faster and cheaper than you.
Yeah. And that's when you really get into it. What do you think needs to shift in someone's mindset to get to that place, to be able to do that?
Oh man. The biggest block that has to shift first is, honestly, it's fear. And fear, fear coming from a few different places, but ultimately fear. It is scary. It is a little scary, but there's lots of lessons to be learned. I put out a video of just a quick fear thing that had changed my life. Actually, I took my two kids. They're 2 years apart right now. They're 9 and 7. And when they were 7 and 5, I took them to a fair. Back where I'm from, there's a big, huge fairgrounds in Los Angeles County. Have you ever been on the big yellow slide, Jake, at the LA Fair?
Yeah, the LA County Fair in Pomona.
Yeah.
I know you're talking. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's huge.
Okay. So the slides, in fact, mostly they're yellow, but maybe they could be other colors, but they're the gunny sack slides, right? And they have the little
I think all fairs have those, right? That's not just an LA County Fair thing.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Giant. In all honesty, there is some reason to be afraid of those compared to like a roller coaster that has like,
who built this? Who put this together?
Yeah, right. Like, a carny put this together, right? Like,
that's so good, dude. So we go, and I take my two kids on this slide, right? And so normally today it's my older daughter. She's the older one, and she's a little bit more of a fraidy cat, and my son's a little bit more excited to do things. But on this particular time, she was so excited. The famous gunny sack slide, right? And so we go up. It's a little bit, I'm having to coax them up there, and they're both kind of acting similar, but my son is just scared to death, right? So we get up to the top, and he wants to go down, meaning down the stairs. He doesn't want to go down the slide. And so I think I'm going to be a super great dad, and I'm just going to talk him through this. He's 5. He can understand. He's a smart boy. So I'm like, son, what's the matter? What are you feeling? What's so scary? We're all here. Look at all these people. We're all going to do this together. Everybody's smiling. He's like, Dad, I feel this like thing in my chest, and I almost feel like I can't breathe. And Dad, my hands are kind of tingly, and I think I should just go down the stairs. I'm so scared. And I'm like, well, Kaylin, my daughter, I was like, Kaylin, are you afraid? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, tell Rid what it feels like. What are you feeling? And she goes, oh, Rid, I'm like, I feel it like this, like these like butterflies in my stomach, in my chest, and my hands and my feet are all tingly. And I'm just so excited to grab the gunny sack and go down the slide. And for a split second, I'm like, no, right? I'm like, Kaylin, you're going to ruin this. Like, what are you doing? And then it occurred to me, and how did these two kids, one absolutely excited and one totally terrified, described it? I'm like literally with the same words, the same exact words, even down to the butterflies in their belly and their tingly hands. I will never forget it. And it totally changed my life. And these little kids taught me this lesson that I get to decide, am I feeling excitement and happiness, or am I feeling just fear? And so am I excited to scale a business? And it is risky, and it is fun, and it is unknown, but is that exciting? Or am I going to label that fear and not go down the big yellow slide and have a great time? So my two kids ended up both going down the slide, and they had a super great time. And they probably will never remember that. And I'll be telling them that when I'm an old man and they got their own kids someday, how they totally changed my life. And it's just awesome. And I see those parallels everywhere. And for whatever the source of the fear is, man, fear is one of the biggest things that just halts people in their path. It's like a cancer of the mind and a cancer of action. And for me, I mean, there's things I still get afraid of, and I reach out to a mentor of mine. I actually have a few of them. Actually, Jake, you're a mentor of mine. And, and I reach out to groups of friends and people, and I'm a part of circles. I'm a part of masterminds. I'm a part of other entrepreneurs and groups that they might be afraid too. But if we're all together, it's like if you've ever been to a lake, like Lake Powell, it's like when you're all standing on the edge of the rock to jump off the 30-foot cliff into the water. When we're all doing this together, we can all do it. But if I climb up there by myself, it would feel a little scary. And so I think there is something about having groups of friends and mentors and people where it's like, we're in this together. We might solve precisely different problems in business, but we're all actually in this whole thing together. And that's really helped me.
I'm kind of chuckling because of the Lake Powell jumping off the cliff analogy, because like I think about that all the time. I think about cliff jumping. I don't know what it is, but I just love jumping off bridges and cliffs into water.
Exhilarating.
I love it. It's so fun. And you're standing there looking down going, am I really going to do this? And you're looking down saying, I know that someone else just did it, but like, what if a log happens to float by and you start thinking of all the possible things? Or what if there's a rock that someone just barely missed? You start thinking those things. And then finally you jump. And then there's this moment of, there's nothing I can do anymore, so I might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, there's that point of no return. You know how when one leg gets off and your weight's already forward, but you haven't quite.
Your weight's forward. You couldn't even do anything.
Like, that roller coaster started, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going.
But the reason why I laugh is because I used to think this was a universal experience. I thought this was a universal experience that everyone understood. But I have said it many times in coaching sessions where I say, it's kind of like if you were going to go jump off of a cliff into water. And if you're going to go do something, it's kind of like if you're doing cliff jumping and, you have that feeling, and I can see their eyes. They're like, what? Like, that sounds crazy. This analogy isn't helping me
do that.
Right. And like, it's so fun because to me, I thought that was like such a universal experience. And after doing it more times, I always start that analogy with, have you ever done cliff jumping? And if they say, oh yeah, totally. Now I go into it. But like, it's so often where I'll say that, like, it's like if you're going to go cliff jumping and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I just so surprised.
Not doing that.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to end with a couple tactical things. If you were to give, look, I'm spitballing it. Pressure's on. You come up with something. If I were to give you, hey, you just got 3 things that you can give to someone who's in that 6-figure range, wants to scale to 7, 3 kind of bullet points. Hey, you know what? 3 most important things are do this, do that. What are those?
Okay. Ooh, if there's only 3, I would say the first one has to be to get your mind right. It has to. The second one, I would say anything that could be automated should be automated. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the third one would probably be to immediately hire your next person right now. Like it would be to get past the fear. And I would challenge somebody to hire a person before the end of the week. If you're serious about scaling, you're going to hire somebody before the end of the week, or at least you're going to have your first interview for that person before the end of the week.
I love that.
If there was any bonus steps, then of course there's ways to optimize pricing and profitability and make good business decisions, right? And optimize your marketing and all those things. But before those would even work, before those would even give you any results, getting your mind right. That happens with a few things. For me, that happens through mentorship. It happens through self-work, through mentors, coaches, masterminds, groups, right? And then automating anything that can be automated. In the day we live in, there's so much tech that is so affordable. I mean, subscriptions that are, anywhere between $10 a month and $30-$40 a month, that would just change all the things that you're doing, and lots of subscriptions that are totally free, right? And and then literally take the leap.
Love it.
Grab mine and Jake's hands at Lake Powell. Let's jump in the water and go hire somebody, because if you're serious about scaling, you'll have to have that person anyways. And then here's what happens. Sometimes the force method works great. Sometimes you hire the person and go, oh, shoot, I got to figure out how to pay for this person. And you know what happens? When you have to figure out how to pay for an employee, you figure it out.
Yeah, you totally figure it out. How much have masterminds, coaching, mentorship, how much has that impacted you in your career and your life?
So, I mean, a ton. Actually, a ton on both sides. In perfect candor, I've been a part of masterminds that have not helped, and I've been the wrong fit, or maybe they've been the wrong fit, right?
Of course.
But becoming a part of a mastermind that is focused on wherever the heck you want to go, or solve the things that you feel like you want to solve. Because time is such a, just like we talked about, this depleting resource that you can't make more of. It's so valuable that your time is that, right? And you should focus it on the things that are actually going to work. So if I want to go from 6 to 7 figures, I want to hang out with people who are going 6 to 7 figures, or I want to hang out with people who are at 7 figures or on their way there.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Jarrett, what's the best place to get in touch with you if people want to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm all over social media, just my first name, last name, Jarrett, 2 R's, 2 T's, Ingram. And then, of course, on my website, super easy, jarrettingram.com. And here to party, here to play and party.
Yeah, I love it, man. Jarrett, let's end this with a virtual fist bump. Boom.
Boom. Let's get it. You're the man.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something great out of it. And most importantly, I hope that you're going to implement something that you learned in this episode, because nothing happens until you take action. If you're a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur who's looking to up-level your network with a group of people who also have a rising tide lifts all boats attitude, then come and join our exclusive network of successful entrepreneurs by going to mtmsuccess.com/rising tide.